Did you guys have any questions? Sorry, we had to sign out. We had some technical difficulties there. Nope. Okay. Perfect. Well, go ahead and we'll start our 10-minute break and then we'll jump right into the assignment portion. I'll go ahead and pull Illustrator up and we'll see you guys in just a few minutes. Okay, we're back and running. So if everyone has their Illustrator up, go ahead and begin with me. We're going to start by creating a new document, okay? I should have probably gone over this in the beginning, but here we're in Illustrator. We're going to go to File, select New. This is where you'll give it a name, so you can title it DES 113 assignment. It'll tell you how to label it. Assignment 1 underscore Woodland, and then this is the number of artboards, meaning how many pages do you want. Now you're going to need 8, so select 8, and then make sure your units of increment or your measurements are on inches, and it's 8.5 by 11. Okay, all this other information you won't need. So this is about it. Columns, you won't need columns, and hit OK. Okay. And then I'm just zooming in. You can hit Command plus to zoom in. Or you can use your magnifying glass, which is here at the bottom of your tool panel. What's neat about your tools panel is that if you don't know what something's called, you can just hover over the tool and it will give you the name. And sometimes in parentheses, it'll give you a keyboard shortcut. So if you hover over it, it'll give you the name of it, and you can do it that way. All right, so the idea here is to do logo designs. So you're gonna have to come up with 8 of them, which I'll be helping you along with a few, and you can take my ideas and run with it, or try something new of your own. You're welcome to do that too. And I'll show you also how we're gonna format things. Let me shrink everything down. Sorry, I have a million windows open. There we go. All right, so the first one's going to be very basic. So we're going to be setting it up like this. You're going to need to list the font that you used, the font style, and on whether it was bold or regular, and then the name of the company. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do, let's do Futura. I'll highlight it. I'll go to Futura up here at the top. And my font size, I'm going to up it until it's fairly large. I'll do Futura. And this is book. Futura book size 21. Or I guess the font size doesn't matter, but I do want to know the font that you're using. And we'll line it up here. I'm sorry, right down here. And then underneath it, you'll put the name of the company, which is going to be, I'm going to start with Jumping Spider. Jumping Spider Toys. Now, I think when we got cut off, I didn't go over what logo letter marks are. So let me do that real quick before we get too far ahead of ourselves. So I'm going to stop the share real quick and see if I can pull up the PowerPoints that we had. We'll do the PowerPoints really quick. All right, we're going to skip over this. Font families, we've kind of went over this a little bit. This might be a good video to use. We'll go back to that. Okay, so here's logos and letter marks. What is a letter mark? Okay, letter marks are often the initials in a company. So if, let's see, for instance, so Jumping Spider Toys, what initials would you use for the letter mark? Or what letters would you use for the letter mark? For Jumping Spider Toys. You would use JST, right? The initials of the company. So Bank of Lantander, the initials would be BL. The Tuscana Italian Bistro, that's a tongue twister, is TIB. So you would use the initials of the company to design the logo. Let's talk about what letter marks are. So the font, we talked about echoing the image of the company, just like it would echo an emotion or a descriptive word. We want it to echo the image of the company. So what you would use for a toy store would be a different font you would use for a computer company or a restaurant. We want these to be self-contained. Proximity is plays a big part in this. When you look at the logo, you need to easily understand or associate that logo with the company, the type of industry that you're designing for. So I want to look at your logo and say immediately, that looks like an Italian restaurant logo, or that looks like a tech company logo, or that looks like a toy company. So weight, individual uniqueness, black and white only, remember, and positive and negative space. I want you to play with that a little bit. Wow. And let's also look at some examples. So here's some examples of letter relationships. So some letters flow into each other, others kind of flow together. They're all twisted and combined. Others are connected. Some are disconnected. Sometimes letters are flipped upside down to create other letters, like the W's in London Grammar. Those W's create the M's when they're turned upside down. So it kind of creates a custom look to the letter mark logo. And for letter marks, test several different options. So as you can see, AWS is the initials for this company. I want you to study the different personalities that these fonts have. Some fonts are going to give you a totally different look and message and feel than another font. So play with the fonts. Don't just settle with the first one that you have. Now you do need to use the fonts from the pre-selected font folder that they give you under the assignment. So make sure you download that and only use those fonts. For additional effect, you might want to experiment with positive and negative space. This J and C, I think, is very, very clever. They use the negative space, the positive space, the white space, to create a really unique logo. The airplane is white. It almost looks like it's dissecting this oval here, City Direct. But by using the positive and negative space appropriately, you're able to get the idea of what company this is, and without it being very complicated. This boss hunting, I think, is very, very clever. Again, they combined a B and an H, and it just works. It's very, very, very unique and subtle. FedEx, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the E and the X, the negative space and positive space between the two letters, what shape do you see between the two letters as they connect? You guys see anything? There's an arrow between it. So the arrow is very unique for FedEx because they're basically a mail service. So they deliver packages. It's all about express mail, right? So their big thing is overnight expressing. And the arrow just constantly shows that the company is moving forward. Things are in motion. So just by using the negative space between these two letters, it created a very unique concept and gets the message across very, very well. Look at this word pencil. Between the I and the L, the positive space between there, that white space, almost creates the effect of a white pencil. So what a clever way to integrate these objects, these letter marks, by using the white and negative space. So very, very clever here. So as you're doing this, I want you to kind of Google image letter marks for different companies. I want you to kind of see what's being done out there. All right, are there any questions about what a letter mark is? They're the initials of a company that you will stylize and create a different effect. Now, I don't want you just using a font. We're going to be learning how to play with the positive and negative space a little bit. And I do have a video that I want to show you real quick. We're only going to do 2 minutes of it, but this will show you how to adjust text, how to play with this type sizing, the letter spacing, tracking, kerning, all of those wonderful things that you will need to know when you are creating logo design. And I will pull this up real quick. And after this video, we'll go into the design portion. Hang on. 1 second. I don't think Zoom wants to work today for me. Here we go. All right, let's try this. Let me know if you have sound come in.
This video, we're going to talk about type families, type sizing, and an introduction to type spacing. Type families is the term for a typeface or font that has been designed with several different styles associated with it. Not every typeface or font is designed that way. If you go to some of the free font websites and download a font there, it will probably not have different styles associated with it. It will just have the one. And so not every font does. But a font like Helvetica certainly, and certain of the other ones that you're using in the course, will be given through the program, such as InDesign or Illustrator, Photoshop, with different styles you can use with it. And you can see that I have typed this up in Helvetica here, and in my InDesign character panel, in the styles drop-down, you can see the different styles that have been given to me to use, and I've set the words in the style. Okay? You'll notice that they use the term oblique and not italic, but it's the same, it means the same thing. Now, in other programs on other computers and from other companies that have released Helvetica, because different type companies can release the same font under their name, you can find different styles and they are named differently. So you might come across a Helvetica italic, which is the same as oblique. You might see additional styles such as extended or condensed or combinations of those. You might see an outline version. You might see an underlined version. If you see a style that's called book, it's considered the same as regular or medium. If you see a style called black, that means an extra heavy bold. So we have these available to us here in InDesign. But there are other ones out there. And Helvetica is a type style or typeface. Since it's so popular, it has a very large type family. So that is basically what that term means. Type sizing, okay? Type is sized in a unit called points, okay? The size of the letters and the spacing between lines in a paragraph are measured in this unit of points. 72 points equals 1 inch. So it's quite a small unit here. The name, by the way, for the spacing between lines, it's called line spacing, but it's also more commonly known as the term leading. Okay, and you will see this term a lot. It's a very common type term, and you're going to be working a lot with it when you are setting your type. Here I've set some of the typefaces you're using in the course in the different faces and also in different sizes. You can see how quickly they can get large. Now, since 72 points equals 1 inch, this Helvetica, if it were printed out, since it's 72 points, it would be just about 1 inch tall. Not exactly, but pretty close.
Okay, so we'll stop there. And then just real quick, there is a video on letter marks that I would like to show. Pull this up. We'll just watch a few minutes of this one.
Here we're going to talk about letter forms and logos and the things that you can consider when you're working with letter forms to create an expressive letter mark or type logo. Now, what you see here is a partial screen of the result of a Google search I did for logos. And this page came up filled with logos, many of which I'm sure you recognize. Now, in this course, we're going to work exclusively with type. So the imagery here is not something we're going to consider. But there are a couple of logos here that I feel use type to a very expressive extent, and they're highlighted here. The Oreo logo is one that I think works very well because the fat white letter forms really give us a feeling of the cream that's inside the chocolate cookie. If the letter forms here had been thin or delicate or even colored, it wouldn't work nearly as well. I know you all agree that we get a sense of the rich, opulent cream that's inside the cookies here, and the letter forms help to recognize that. Notice too that the letter forms, while being very fat and sumptuous looking, are still slightly separated so that you can easily read the word. And this is always something to consider when you're working with letter forms. If you can't read it, it's not going to be successful. So over here, we have a logo you may be familiar with, the Guitar Hero video game logo. This is very well done because, again, you can easily read the phrase, even though the letters have been distorted and manipulated such that they fit closely together, like a tight band would, so to speak. And the G and the R, you'll notice, have been stylized, and the points have been manipulated on some of the other letters. The whole effect is one of kind of a Gothic Old English feel, such as many metal bands use in their music. So we get a sense of that hard rock feeling from this really well done logo, all done with letter forms. Over here, we see a very simple one, the Hershey's logo. Now, of course, the dark brown rectangle behind the letter forms signifies the delicious chocolate bar that's inside the package. You'll notice, too, that the letter forms are not treated that extensively. It's a very simple treatment, but the letters are all caps. They're in a bold sans serif typeface, very tightly spaced, very tidy, again, very easy to read. But the way that this works, I think, is the fact that the letters are all capitals. That implies confidence, boldness, and it also makes for a nice rectangular shape to the words, which fits nicely on a package. So an all caps treatment can communicate that power, that boldness and confidence. It can also be really easy to work with in layout because it comes out in a nice rectangular aspect. The last logo we're going to look at here is the eBay logo, and it's a good Spider Toys. Intimates is to work with a toy store logo, Jumping Spider Toys. And here I have worked a little bit with the letter forms to express the nature of some of the things you can do to make this successful for you. And I'm going to make this a little smaller so we can see the screen. JST, the three letters of the company, are treated in a couple of different ways. And you'll notice that down here I have a listing of things you can do design-wise to work with your type. You can work with scale or size. You can change them. You can use mixed typefaces, such as I have done in this logo here, and mixing up the type to work. You can use mixed case, as I talked about a moment ago. Here the T is lowercase, and yet the capital S and J work with the lowercase t here. And you'll notice that in some cases the letters touch, signifying unity. You can work with different type styles. You can mix bold and italic. You can work certainly with color. And for a toy store, I'm sticking with bright primary colors, which are appealing to children. The way that you place and relate the letters to one another is really important. Here I've taken the background purple rectangle and I have angled it a little bit to imply playfulness, or like a block. It's always important to remember to maintain your readability. And a lot of times this background shape will help to unify the logo. If I was going to go and color this logo up top here, for instance, I could color in that circle. And I would want to for a toy store, because you want to have something that is bright and cheerful and appealing. Now, it's also important to remember, though, when you design a letter mark or a logo, you want to also have a black and white version that works as well. In this case, the JST, the red background here, I have a black and white version that could.
Okay, so we'll stop there. Just so that you know, this assignment has to be done in black and white, which is kind of sad in color, but the reason why we're having you design in black and white only is because sometimes we use color as a crutch, or we get out of hand because we don't know how to constrain how to use it. So what we're going to do is design just in black and white for this assignment. And I'll pull up Illustrator. We saw how we created a new document, and now I will show you a few ideas. We just saw how to do Jumping Spider. I'll do one for you. Were there any questions from the videos that you might have had? So while I'm waiting for that to come in, you can use your type tool by selecting it, click and drag the text box as large as you need it to be. Type in JST, and you can play along with the fonts. Now Futura probably won't give me the font I'm looking for, so I'll do Helvetica. There's JST, perfect. Now there's a few things that you can do. I'm gonna expand the text here so you can see it. JST, to create some playfulness, I like it at an angle. What I'm using on Helvetica is a condensed oblique, which is a form of a italic. And I do like this. I like how it's italicized. That can create some playfulness. It gives it a different angle to look like. Once you have your type typed out, you can go to Type, Create Outlines. Now, I must warn you, before you do this step, it is no longer editable with the Type tool. So it's always a good rule of thumb to maybe make a copy of it by holding down the Alt or Option button. Clicking and dragging will allow you to make a copy, so in case you want to reuse that font. But once you select your text box, you'll go to Type, Create Outlines, and then you'll right-click, Ungroup. Okay? Now this will allow you to move the letters individually. They are now individual vectors. So the purpose of doing this is to, I can rotate the letters to kind of create some more playfulness. I'll select the letter. I don't want an extreme angle on it, but I do want to make it look like it is off its little axis a little bit. I'm going to move it up. Again, she talked about touching, being unified or unifying. You could touch the letters. I'm actually going to keep them disconnected. I'll bring in this T. I'm actually going to lower the T a little bit. I do want to keep proportions about the same, so I'll bring this T in and maybe lower it just a little bit. I want to get the baseline to match up, so this J will probably have to be shortened a little bit. And I'll bring this T in. Okay, so now that I have the baseline lined up, I'll get that lined up just a little bit more. And I've angled the S. What I'm going to do is create a drop shadow. I'm going to grab, let's see. I select the S and go to, actually, I'll use a line. And I will draw it right underneath the S. I use the line tool right here, the line segment tool. I clicked and dragged. And what you'll need to do is give this line tool a color, which is up here on your stroke. And this one will be a light gray. And I'm going to give it a pretty heavy stroke, which is the size. And then the opacity I'm going to bring down. This allows you to select what size stroke you want to have. So I'm just going to do a very light opacity. And I don't know if you could even see that. We'll go a little darker. Just like that. So it almost looks like it's a little shadow of the S hanging down. Can you see that? And that's kind of a neat way to play with it. Kind of gives it some depth too. So the S looks like it's jumping. When we talked about making words, well, I should say the font family describe the word that we've typed out. Jumping, how do you make the letters jump? Well, I just did. I made my S jump off. The S could be jumping high, but you don't want it too high where it looks totally disconnected. You don't want it low. You want to make it look like it's. I'm going to line it up with the ascender line, and the descender line on both of my tall letters are going to line up. Okay, just like that. So there's my jumping spider. That's one logo that I could do. You could even get, and to resize something, if you want to highlight all of it. So click and drag with your black arrow, which is the selection tool. You click and highlight all of the letters. You can hold down Shift and Option. This will help you to resize resize things proportionately. And by doing that, I probably need to widen my drop shadow. Okay, so there it is. Are there any questions on how I got an effect, how I did anything? Any questions at all? Okay, so there's one option. Let's do another one. We have 8 artboards after all. So I'm going to copy and paste. Now a quick shortcut with this one is if you copy to hit Command C, we'll copy, and Command V will paste. So then you can kind of line it up. I want to see things kind of lined up roughly in the same spot, if you can help it. Okay, so for the new logo, for the second version of this logo, she talked a lot about using background now. I don't like using background because sometimes you rely too much on the background, but I could add a different effect to this by adding maybe some playful circles. And there is something at the bottom of your toolbar called Stroke and Fill. Your stroke box is the one with the hollow center, and you want that in the foreground. The fill box is usually the one, it's just the full square. But your stroke right now is set to a gray. I want to make sure that that fill is filled in. So you can use the swap arrow to go back and forth. As you can see, I'm kind of toggling back and forth. If you double click the fill or the stroke box, in this case we want the fill box, you can give it a color. Now we can't use anything other than black or white, so we're going to go with black. And I'm going to arrange this. So I'm going to right click with my circle selected and send to the back. Okay, now right now you can't see it, but I'm going to make another copy of that. Remember, copy and paste, or you can hold down Alt Option. And again, I'm just going to kind of set these circles. So I want all these circles highlighted, and I'm going to send it to the back. Now I'm going to kind of carefully hover over my letters. I'm going to select my letters only, and I'm going to bring them to the front. I'm also going to change the color from black to white, and you do that up here next to your compound path. Okay. So here, you can kind of give it a little playful look, or you can so just kind of play around with it, what looks good. I want this J to actually look like a J. I want to kind of extend this circle so it looks like it's not a T. There we go. All right, so that's another way to make your logo stand out, is by adding a little bit of background. Now we do need to only design in black and white, so that's a very simple option. Another thing you could do is, you could create something, maybe it's a spider, or I don't know, just use your creativity and kind of figure out how you could do a play on toys, or a play on spider, a play on jumping. In this case, I made the S look like it was jumping, so that was kind of the idea there. So with the same concept in mind, I'm going to copy this text box and I'm going to paste it on the next page. We're going to be doing a different logo. Let's do the Italian restaurant. We're going to shake things up. So, and this one is going to say Toscana, Italian Bistro. And in this case, I'll do Dido, bold. This is going to be the font I'll use. bold. Okay. And I'm going to take my type tool. I'm going to click and drag. And like the video said, they used a contrast of uppercase and lowercase. So in this case, I'm going to do a lowercase I and uppercase T and B. If you go to, type, create outlines, and then right click, ungroup. This will allow me to manipulate each one. So what I want to do first order of business is make the I larger than my T and B. I want to make sure everything's lined up basically on the same baseline grid. I'm going to shrink them down quite a bit. I don't want them disconnected, so what I'm going to do is shrink this I up. I do want them on the same. I'm going to double click on this circle. I'm going to bring it in. And I'm even going to make it a little bit larger. I'm going to bring this TIB, and I want this to match up at the A center line of the body. I'll bring it in nice and tight. I don't want it to look disconnected. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is focus a little bit on this circle. So I'm going to zoom in here. Command plus will zoom you in by using the keyboard, or Command minus will zoom you out. And I'm going to shrink this down just a little bit. And I'm going to create a triangle, which is actually, yeah. If you click the star and then click once, it'll allow you to set the points. Obviously, 3 points are on a triangle. You hit OK. And then if you hover over the anchor points, which are these white boxes on your surrounding your object, it will curve your arrow. That means rotate. It will allow you to rotate something. And bring this in. I'm going to shrink it down quite a bit because it's a little too big. But I'm going to have this intersecting because what the idea here is I'm going to make it look like a piece of pizza coming out of it. Now I'm going to select these two objects. I'm going to go to Window, and if you go to your Pathfinder, Pathfinder is a neat little tool that if you mess around with it enough, you'll find an effect that you really like. I'm going to be using the divide effect. Whoops. Let's try this. Divide. Okay, and the divide effect now divides the objects that intersect each other. So now I can give this this little slice of pie a stroke of white, and it will stand against, it'll kind of look like a piece of pizza. And I'm going to bring it out. Like that. So this is a very simple way of using strictly typography, but you're kind of creating something, whereas if you were to look at this, you say, oh, this looks like a restaurant. Okay, are there any questions so far about this? You kind of have some ideas. One last one I'll do for you guys, and then we'll move to the assessment because I do want to cover a little bit of that. So this one, we'll use Futura Bold. And just a word to the wise, you're going to need to spell check things. You'll have to either run a spell check, or you will just kind of make sure that you carefully spell things, because it's not like Word will underline something if you misspelled it. And you do get docked points if you misspell something. So we want to make sure we're spelling it correctly. So for this one, I'm going to do Futura. Let's do bold. And do PTC because that's the name of the company, Paramount Technology Company. I'm going to make this bold. I'm going to select the box, go to type, create outlines, just like we did, right click, ungroup. And for this one, this is a really simple way of doing it. I'm going to, you can either grab your rectangle tool or you can grab the stroke tool. And I'm just going to add 2 of these in there, almost like it's an outlet or a plug that goes into an outlet. See what I did there? That's a simple way. I'm going to shorten these a little bit. So this is Paramount Technology Company. I can even bring them in a little bit. Not too much. I really want to pay attention to the negative spacing between the T and the other letters. So this is a neat way. You could even make this one up a little bit. I like it down, maybe separated, probably not touching. So there you go. So that's another way that you could get across a point without needing to use color or anything like that. And you can also play around with the negative space and see where it gets you. Let's see what else. Anyways, you can kind of see where I'm going, but just play around with it and see what looks best to you. But here's some ideas to just get the creative juices flowing a little bit. So there's that logo. Okay. All right. So so say you're done with the assignment, you do need to convert it to a multi-page PDF. You'll go to File. Let's do Save As. And it'll do a lot of thinking. Then I'll ask you, okay, where do you want to save this? You'll give it a folder. I usually like to save it to my desktop and then put it somewhere else. Thanks, Robbie, for coming. Just catch the last of the recording if you need it. And then go to desktop or wherever you want to save it. Hit save. And then by doing that, I'll ask you, okay, actually, let's backtrack. So if you go to File, Save As, you'll need to change the format down here. I forgot to do that. So change it to Adobe PDF, all the pages, save, and then it'll ask you, do you want to preserve the Illustrator capabilities? Yes, and then hit Save PDF. Okay, so that's how you'll do the multi-page PDF. All right, so now let's move on to the design or the InDesign portion of this. So let me do a new share. Let's see here. Actually, let me pull it up first. See if it'll... When you have all these programs running, it's really hard to have multiple open at the same time. This one seems to be running slow. So give me a minute and I'll get this pulled up. Okay. It's still thinking. So sorry. Give it a minute. Okay, there we go. So now for this one, I'll pull up my InDesign. We're going to be shifting gears to the assessment. I'm going to pull the assessment up so that I can make sure we get the formatting that you need to know correct. So we'll go to the assessment part, basic typesetting exercise. What I think is helpful is if you grab the first exercise one at a time. So the first one says, let's see. Okay, so page 1. Well, actually, let's get the formatting correct. So if you go to File, New Document, right here, File, New Document, or Command N will pull up a new dialog box. Number of pages, I believe you'll need 5. Click 5. You want to make sure the box facing pages is unchecked. You want to deselect that. You do not want it checked because we don't want them side by side. We want them separate. And then you'll want the landscape. And it's already defaulted to the letter page size. So it's in picas. Mine is in picas, but if your settings might be completely different, we just want to make sure it's an 8.5 by 11 landscaped page. So then you'll hit OK, and that is all you'll need to know to set up the document. You should have 5 pages there. Page 1, let's do page 1. Okay, so you'll need to typeset your name in an 8-point sans serif font in the bottom left-hand part of each page. Now, instead of doing this 5 times, I do recommend you using your master pages, which is a lesson in and of itself. But briefly, I'll show you how to access it. So if you go to Window, Pages, and then if you go to your A master, which is right here, the second white square, when it's gray, that means you're on it. And you can grab your type tool, and you'll just click and drag, and you need to put your name. So in this case, I'm Mrs. Woodland, and I'll highlight it. Apple A or Command A will highlight your text, and I will change this to 8-point font because that's what it needs to be. It needs to be, I guess you can give it any font family, but it does need to be aligned left. Here's your alignment right here. So it's aligned left, and it needs to be in the text box above. So I'll show you right here where you're going to place it. Left-hand part of each page. I'm going to put it right here. Okay? So very subtle, but it's there. And now by applying it to my master page, it now is applied to all of my pages. So it's a really helpful thing. So the way you know you're on your master page or that it's a master element is if you see this dotted line around your object or your text box. So then I'll click on page 1, and you're supposed to type the word truth. You can copy and paste from the assessment page in our course homepage if you want, but it says truth. Command A will highlight it. And then specs, it needs to be 225 points. So I'll go to the font size right under my character formatting controls. Other way to access the option to change your fonts is under Window, Type and Tables, click on Character. And then you can, let's see, and then here you'll be able to adjust the font size. So 225. I'll keep this little dialog box open. And the leading needs to be 225. Now, changing the leading will not affect this at all. You'll notice nothing changed. The only reason why you use leading, let me show you as an example, is if you did have the word truth, and let's make it large so you can see. Leading affects the space between the words or the lines of text. So in this case, oops. So we have 2 lines of text here. By changing or increasing the leading, it adjusts the spacing between the lines of text, okay? So that's what leading does. So because we don't have a second line of text, you won't see a change on here. But the spacing is the same, so 225. And then just make sure it looks even. Use the kerning tool to make any needed adjustments. Kerning is the spacing between each letter, how tight or how far apart or distant. And you really want to make sure that usually in fonts it's pretty evenly spaced, but your kerning is done right here. Or I'm sorry, that's your tracking. is done right here. Your kerning you can adjust to even out spacing. All right, so that one's done. No adjustments really need to be made on this one. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to page 2. The rules of typography can be broken. So let's grab that text. I'll draw another text box. I copied and pasted from what's on the assessment one. And then this tells me it needs to be 36 points. So 36 points. 48 leading. So I'll go to my leading setting and go 48. And then it needs to be Helvetica New Regular. So again, we're going to be changing our font family. Helvetica Font New Regular. There it is. And then it needs to be flush left. The alignment is left, as you can see up here. And then it says make line breaks at a logical break in the text. So we don't want any of these little cliffhangers. You see this dash here by broken. We don't want words spread apart. So the best way to do that is if you highlight the word, Command A will highlight it, or you can click and drag your cursor, your type tool cursor, and highlight the whole word. There is a box way up at the top right here called hyphenate. And if you click that, it will already break your rules for you. But the good rule of thumb in English grammar is to just break the sentence at the comma. So that's just an easy way. And then it says avoid widows, which is those broken words. So you want to make sure hyphenate is checked. You can find the hyphenate box by going to Window, type in Tables, Paragraph, and then make sure hyphenate is deselected. Okay, and then it won't do any, it won't give you widows. Widows are usually the one word that is hanging off or the hyphenated words. So we want to make sure we avoid that it's broken at an appropriate place. Okay, are there any questions so far? Any questions of where to find things? Are we feeling comfortable with it? Okay, and then, so we have our first page, our second page, third page. We're going to need to grab the text. Grab our type tool, click and drag. And then it says we want to do 10 point. So I'll adjust the font here to 10. 18 leading. There we go. And then it says Adobe Garamond Regular. So again, this is where I'll change it in the character dialog box. And then justify it. So make sure it's left justified. Make sure auto hyphenation is on. So now we got to turn it back on to make sure it's selected. And then modify the text box so that you have a medium column. You want about 70 to 90 characters. So what I'm going to do is kind of bring it in like that. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I want it to look something like that. And then apply a first letter indent to the second paragraph. Do not indent the first paragraph. So the second paragraph, I'm going to grab an indent. So I'm going to make sure my cursor is blinking. I'll zoom in. Is blinking right here, my second paragraph, and I want to indent it 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch. And we're going to go to this portion up here, first line indent. You see that? Or on our paragraph control settings, you can see right here, first line indent. And you can manually type in 0.125 inches. And there you go. So it's already indented it for you right here. But we're not indenting the first paragraph, so only the second one. So be aware of that, okay? Okay, so we're running out of time. This is about all the time that we have for this, this class. I don't know if I'll be able to do them all for you, but 4 and 5 I'll leave up to you. The rubric will be posted for you guys tonight, so just make sure you check that. Make sure you do your discussion and participate before Wednesday. We've got to have our first post in. To convert this to PDF though, you'll click on File. It's a little different than Illustrator, so you'll click on File, Export. Give it a name. So this is Assessment 1. Or DES 113 Assessment 1. This is Woodland. Woodland. And then you'll find a folder and save it. When you hit save, it'll ask you what kind of file you want. High quality print is fine. That's actually what you'd want if you were sending it to a printer. There's also a lower, smallest file size which would be acceptable. But for the pages, you want to make sure it says all. And then you want to, I think that's all you'll need. You'll hit export, and then it'll create the multi-page PDF for you. Are there any questions, Teresa? Anything that we haven't addressed that you might want to know? Anything that I might have gone over too quickly? I know it was a little rushed there towards the end, but I just wanted to make sure we got the assignments demoed real quick. Okay. All right, perfect. Well, thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate you. And we will we'll meet back here on Thursday. We do have the multi-session, which is not a recorded lecture. It won't be recorded at all. In fact, it's kind of an open lab where you just come in and ask questions if you need questions, if you want help on the assignment. It's also an opportunity that I offer students to come in and get their assignments either pre-graded, or if they're ready to submit, I can critique it right there on the spot for them. And they can make any necessary changes that they need to before they submit. Once they submit, you can receive a grade there on the spot, so you don't have to wait for your grade to be graded over the weekend. So it's kind of some students like that because they get their grade instantly, and it's a good grade usually, and I'm happy because I don't have to, it's one less assignment to grade. So everyone's happy. It's a great opportunity, so hopefully you take advantage of it. And let me know if you have any questions in between now and Thursday. You can reach me by email. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And if you are going to call or text, just be mindful of the time zone difference because I am Pacific Standard Time. So those of you on the East Coast who are up at 7, that's actually 4 o'clock in the morning my time. So just make sure you guys are aware about that. And then, yeah, I hope you have fun with this assignment. Have fun doing your logos. This is a really cool assignment right as we're starting the mod. I think this will be a fun one for you. So have a great night. Thanks, Teresa, for coming, and for all of you who are joining at home. Appreciate it. The lecture will be, I'll post an announcement with the link for you guys, and you can also find it under the live sessions tab on the course homepage. All the lecture links will be there. All right, you guys have a great night. We'll see you on Thursday.